I used to really struggle with performance anxiety, and I assumed it was just one of those things that certain people struggle with more and that you just have to learn to live with. But as I later found out, one of the major causes of my performance anxiety was the fact that I wasn't practice performing. You see, I'd spent a lot of time practicing my piece and stopping to fix all the mistakes I had, but I never actually practiced performing the piece. Not until it came time for the concert, at least. And then when that happened, there wasn't really enough time to feel comfortable with it. And then when I got on stage and had to perform it in front of a bunch of people, that anxiety only got worse. But in this video, I'm going to show you one of the main methods that helped me overcome this performance anxiety, and how you can incorporate it into your everyday practice. Before we get into more, I'm David. I've been playing the violin for over 20 years, teaching for over 10, and posting tutorials online for the past 8 years. I studied the Dounis Method, and this method is focused not only on developing your technique, but also on the expressive aspect of playing, and especially performing. So, how can you get better at performing if you don't always have a stage to perform on or have people to play in front of? Well, it's important to start by understanding one of the main causes of performance anxiety, and that is worrying about making mistakes in front of other people and knowing that you can't stop to fix them. That thought alone can cause a lot of stress, and especially when you're already performing in front of other people. Knowing that you can't stop to fix the mistake that you normally would be able to in your practice room can make you more stressed out than you need to be. And actually, if you get comfortable with making mistakes, you'll find that it actually becomes a lot easier to avoid them when performing. This is one of the main principles behind this exercise. And you'll find that if you get good at it, you can still perform at a high level, even if you feel really nervous and even if you haven't had enough time to warm up. The goal of this exercise is to develop what Dounis called a performance attitude. You see, a lot of us base our playing off practicing. And while practicing is very important and we need to stop and fix mistakes to get better, it's important that we feel that the basis of our playing is actually performing, and that practicing and stopping to fix mistakes is something we do to enhance our performing. If you spend 99% of your time in practice stopping and fixing mistakes, you're going to find that it's very hard to transition into that performance mindset that you need when performing. So it's actually more effective and more efficient to start with that performance mindset and then only to stop for mistakes when needed. Here's what that looks like. During every practice session, practice playing through your piece without stopping for any mistakes. This is going to be hard to do at first, especially if you have a habit of stopping often. But once you get good at this and do it consistently, you'll already find that you feel more confident performing. Because when you get on stage, you already know the feeling of what it feels like to play through without stopping for that mistake. And that thought alone will give you more confidence to avoid making mistakes. Now, if you really struggle with playing through without stopping, one helpful tip is actually to practice playing along with a recording. And that can also have a lot of other benefits, besides just helping with playing through pieces. Now, as you're playing through your piece, it's important that you feel like you're playing with full expression, the same as you would if you're performing in front of an audience. And while you're playing through your piece, also make a mental note of some of the problematic areas. These are the parts you'll come back to later. Now, to make this exercise even more effective, I actually like to do it before I warm up or do anything else. After I tune my instrument and stretch my knuckles, I'll immediately go into playing through the piece. Now, this is also going to feel uncomfortable to do, especially if you're used to doing long warm-ups before getting into your practice. But this method of practice has been one of the most effective things for my playing. There's been many situations where I've had to perform without having much of a warm-up time, and this exercise and practicing it before doing warm-ups has given me the confidence to do that. This method of practice performing is something that some of the great players did as well. Heifetz was known for going through and playing through all his pieces without stopping. Each day, he'd go through some of the pieces in his repertoire and simply play them through. And if they weren't at the level that he wanted, he'd come back to them the next day. And other players, like Chrysler, would sometimes play concerts without even doing any warm-ups, or without even having touched their instrument for a long period of time. This was actually the case with a concert that Chrysler did with Eugene Ormandy, where Ormandy was conducting, and he said that Chrysler hadn't even touched his instrument since the last time they had rehearsed, which was nearly a week ago.
I said goodbye to him after the New York performance. I see you next Tuesday, a week from tonight, in Washington. When I looked for him in Washington, I found out he didn't arrive yet. I started to worry. So finally, they called his hotel. He had left. I was just about to change the program when somebody said, he's coming up the stairs now. This was after the overture. So he rushed in. He said, I'm sorry, I'm late. Didn't explain why. He said to me, I said, well, aren't you going to warm up a little bit? He says, oh, no, but I want to see if the strings are on my violin. So I looked at him amazed. I said, what do you mean strings? He said, well, I haven't seen the violin since last Tuesday.
Wow.
He took the violin out of his case. He looked at the strings, he tuned it quickly, he says, I'm ready.
Really?
And he played like only Kreisler could.
Yeah.
Now, how is he able to do that? Well, it's because his playing isn't something that goes away or comes back with doing warm-ups. It's something that was completely natural to him because he had a natural technique. And performing was the basis of his playing. Now, to develop a natural technique, you'll have to do more than just playing through your pieces. But getting good at playing through your pieces and developing a solid performance mindset is still one of the most important things you can have for your playing. Having this performance mindset is key to becoming a great player. But how do you actually fix those mistakes in the context of this performance mindset? Well, once you've identified the major areas that you have problems with, go through and play through those areas in smaller passages. And when you go back, make sure that you're not just playing the problem area. Tie it into the measure or two before it and after it so that you have the context for that passage. This makes it much easier to later incorporate back into the piece. Now, most of your practice should be spent like that, going through and playing through those small problem areas within the context of the passage, making sure that you're playing them with expression. Even when you're working on something very technical, or even if you're in the very beginning stages of learning it, you don't want to play it without expression, because expression isn't something that should be added in later. It's something that you should have from the beginning. Now, in general, you want to minimize the amount of time you're stopping to fix just one or two notes at a time, but sometimes that's definitely needed. But when you do, it's important to remember that you still need to play that with expression, and to then slowly tie it back into the larger passage by playing the notes before it and after it. Now, another tip that helps me with imitating the feeling of actually performing is to practice performing and to record my performance. This can also make it much easier to go back and then fix the areas that you have problems with, because sometimes we subconsciously make mistakes that we're actually not aware of. As you get better at developing this performance mindset, and you get more comfortable with playing through your pieces without stopping for mistakes, you'll find that it becomes easier to perform. And even if you do get nervous, you'll find that you still actually feel comfortable playing the piece, even if it's not to the highest level you've played it at. But the interesting thing is that sometimes when you get nervous, your abilities to play actually can get enhanced. This is because the adrenaline rush that we get can actually increase our focus if you know how to handle it. And that's why some players find that they play even better when they play in front of an audience. More on that in another video. If you're interested in learning more on how to develop a natural technique and on how to incorporate the Dounis method into your playing, check out some of the resources below, including my free ebook.